and welcome back. I'm with Brian Young, and we're here at the Baum Art Gallery. Brian, tell me about some of the exhibits today.
So the current exhibition is the work of graduating BA and BFA seniors. It's a requirement that if you graduate with a BA or BFA from the Art and Design Department, you're both privileged and required to show your work in this group exhibition. We do one every spring, and we do one every fall, and this is our spring version.
What are some pieces that have really stuck out to the audience?
So quite a few, because there's 17 artists, so it's always tough to pick a few favorites, but I think in particular the work of Mary Rice, which are these large kind of amorphous, biomorphic sculptural pieces that evoke the body parts is getting a lot of reaction. There's the work of Joshua Reynolds, who is a former Marine who saw combat. And so he takes works of ancient classical Greek sculpture and he uses that as a springboard to talk about injuries that soldiers have sustained in combat. Shiloh created a small little environment, almost like a mini apartment, and that one stands out. And I'm also a big fan of the work of Mackenzie Drozd. Mackenzie has books that she then transforms into sculpture and into other items. And of course, there's also strong work of graphic design, photography. Let's not forget about painting and the like. So I've heard informally that this could be one of the strongest shows for the BA-BFA.
So I really like the little heart that is open on the pillow.
Right. So that's by Erin Ransom. She, along with Joshua Reynolds, is military background. And her piece is actually quite powerful insofar as her work is biographical, and she basically states that she grew up with her father who was a sociopath or psychopath. In any event, these are really powerful works, and so she's originally was doing photography, but then was in the sculpture studio quite a bit, saw Joshua's work and others, and so she began to carve. And so that heart is kind of like a pillow form, red pillow form, and then I think it's carved alabaster, so on top of that. But it may be kind of pretty from a distance, but when you read her label, it's becomes a little more disturbing.
So were all of the students kind of like in the studio together, watching each other's process?
Sometimes, which is a really interesting point, because we essentially use three buildings for the art department. There's McCaslin, which has the Baum Gallery. We have McAllister, which has some studios like for drawing, photography, graphic design. And then we use Schiestel for ceramics and other media. Well, so we do have some overlap where sculpture students will see each other, or maybe graphic design students will see each other. But with the new Wingate building opening up, all of the studios will be under one roof. So we're hoping to have a little more cross-pollination among different disciplines. So maybe the photography people might run into the sculpture people. That's the thought anyways.
Yeah, because this one that's kind of right behind you has elements of sculpturousness. It's got definitely like a bunch of painting, but they're kind of brought out towards you a little bit.
Yeah, so this is by Hannah Bender, and in fact she was one of the recipients for honors for this exhibition installation. Anyway, she takes, let's say, traditional painting and then mixes it with graffiti and then adds frames, which is a bit ironic. I mean, if you know much about graffiti, typically graffiti is anti-culture, outdoor work, sometimes gang-related, and so the idea that you would include graffiti with frames seems to be a bit ironic. But in this case, because of the way that the piece is set in that niche space, and then a little painting on the background, it all seems to kind of tie together almost like an installation piece.
Yeah, it's one of the more colorful pieces, especially in this room. This room is has more of like a somber tone than the room next to us.
Right.
And so that theme is a little bit interesting to have.
So one of the things I like to do, if possible, is to create a different mood or environment. So to give you an example, when you talk about the work of Joshua Reynolds and the work about Erin Ransom that I alluded to, they're both really heavy subject matters. So I put them next to each other. I don't think it would be appropriate, when possible, to take really heavy subject-laden work and put it next to, let's say, a colorful landscape. They should play well together. So this room, you're right, is more somber, monochromatic, and And then the first room you walk in, though, is really colorful. I think it's almost ironic that Easter's coming up because it has a lot of the same colors we think about when you think about tying Easter eggs. Lavender, purple, foam green, yellows. So the mood also to me seems to be lifting a little bit post-COVID, or maybe I'm reading into it, but I don't remember this much colorful work for this installation, but the combination of spring and COVID being lifted, and so that's the mood in that room. And then there's this one, of course, where we talked about some of the heavier works. And then lastly, though, the small room, I usually keep that much more intimate, but in this case, I just decided to kind of blow it up and make it into a little bit of a fun house with installation work and works hanging from the ceiling, and this apartment with pink carpeting on the side, and it's kind of, so that kind of ends in a playful nature, even if not wholly colorful.
Yeah, so in that first room there is a lot of color, and then I can't tell if it's like an actual like display or like a work of art, but there's like right on this wall, it's Perk, and it's got little cans and shirts and stuff.
So that's one of our graphic design students, and so what they're trying to do is create a logo and then implement that logo onto product. So I think Look is like it might be a caffeinated energy drink, but it's obviously it's conceptual. And then the work to the left of that is another work from her portfolio, and that's a poster. So we do have graphic design here, so you'll see things that look like it could be alive in the wild, that they could somehow make their way to an actual product. So that's what that's about.
Yeah, when I was here for the award ceremony, this place was kind of packed.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of people watching and kind of watched the flow of motion, and it worked really well. Can you tell me a bit about that award ceremony?
So the award ceremony is a chance for the faculty from the art department to vote on what they think is the strongest installation or display. They're not necessarily picking a work of art. And so it's kind of exciting because in addition to opening the show up to the public, people bring their friends and their family and other students, and kind of crowd the place in anticipation of who might get honors for the show. Now, this is the biggest draw we've had since I've been here. It's my 6th year, but I think in part it's because there are 17 artists, and in part because COVID's largely lifted, and so people are feeling comfortable going out again and socializing, and so it was a kind of a converging of forces that made that great. And what's funny is earlier in the day we had over 100 third graders from Harding. Wait a minute. They were on a field trip, and so we had, I would guess we probably had at least 350 people in that one day alone, which is, I think, the best attendance I've had one day since I've been here.
So what was the reaction like from like the family and the friends of the artists here as compared to maybe like the third graders that were like, because some of these you're right, they're very heavy. And
so in my experience, third graders tend to ask the questions that adults want to ask but might be afraid to because they don't want to be embarrassed. But I love questions, and so they have an honesty that's really refreshing, and I like to think of their questions because it can apply to other things, like when they look at these giant pieces by Mary Rice that they have hair on them and they have coloration that might remind you of skin, the kids will flat out ask you, what are those? I'm like, well, they're kind of like body parts. You mean like your tummy? Yeah, maybe like that. So it's really fun to watch smaller kids come in. They have a curiosity that sometimes we forget to keep. We're so busy clouding our heads with our to-do lists or the stress from work or other things. Maybe it's money, whatever it is, but third graders just love a field trip, and they love being around each other, and they love being in a new environment. So that's why I welcomed them. I thought this is a great chance, and a number of them were just flat out told me this is my first time in a museum, and so that always makes you feel good.
That is really exciting. What were some of the responses that the friends and family of the artists gave?
Obviously, most people are supportive, right? So you don't hear a lot of negative talk. Maybe there's thoughts of that, but But with 17 different artists and different bodies of work, I think most people are kind of pleasantly surprised at the quality and the range of work, range of media, range of scale, subject matter, and the effort that these students put in to make their installation. You know, we have a goal that they don't just have to show their work well, but they have to be respectful of the other students, artists in the show, because collectively you want the whole exhibition to be strong. And I think we're pretty lucky that I don't think there's a weak link in the show. So they were really conscientious about that, and that was nice.
Thank you, Brian. We'll be back after this break.
STEM is everywhere, like here, behind the scenes of The Walking Dead.
When we break down clothes, we tumble it with trisodium phosphate, rock salt, and dish detergent.
We stitched together images of our model and created a 3D set that can be walked through in a VR headset.
We're able to turn 12 walkers into 1,000 walker horde.
STEM can create new worlds on and off the screen. What will you make with STEM? Get inspired at SheCanSTEM.com.
Welcome back. I'm with Mackenzie Joyce. So tell me about your piece, A Home Divided.
So A Home Divided is about separation, specifically divorce. And what I wanted to do with the piece was actually encapsulate the feeling around divorce. And so it's very abstract in that you have these really fun arms of book pages just kind of going around. What I did was I actually created redacted book pages. So I took out sentences and left specific words because my friend and her husband, they both went through divorce of their parents, and something that they both had in common was that there were information and people missing in their lives, and so I wanted to represent that through the piece.
Yeah, what words did you decide to keep, and what was the criteria for adding and removing?
All right, so whenever I was working on the piece, I actually kept both positive and negative words. So if you actually look at the sculpture, some arms will show positive and some will show negative, because when you're in this situation, you have both experiences. And so I wanted the viewer to kind of have this exploratory experience where they can see both and kind of put together a story from that.
What was the production like? Because this is a really interesting, it looks
Yes.
like the pages are flying almost. So tell me
Yes.
about how the production of that was.
Yes, so I actually started out with taking out the words, like I said, for this missing information. And I wanted a work that hung in the air. For some reason, I was like, that'd be really cool. And I also thought it would be really cool with that abstract notion that I was going for. And so the book pages themselves are actually suspended in the air by bookbinding thread, but also the pages themselves have wire running in between them. So along the top, the bottom, and also between the pages. And so essentially what I did was I created Christmas ribbon. And so whenever you hang it, you can bend the pages and actually create this kind of flow that I got going on. And for me, it is chaotic yet beautiful. And that's, for me, what divorce is. So during the divorce, it's very tense and people are really, you know, especially for small children, it's a really traumatic experience to go through. But whenever it's over and the parents sometimes will remarry, you know, or just the chaos is gone, you know, they're happier. And that's really what the piece is about.
That's really beautiful. So tell me a little bit about the book jackets.
Okay, so the book jackets complement the book sculptures. So think about it kind of like two parts of one whole. And so you look at the sculpture, it's fun, a lot of them are whimsical, and they actually do have a deeper meaning. And if you read the book jackets, you can actually find out more. And so that's why I created the book jackets to, in a way, give you more detail into the books. And the book jackets actually complement the sculptures. Like, for example, with A Home Divided, I took the book pages themselves and used the shadowing to incorporate into the jackets. And so it's kind of like a balance of fine art and graphic design.
Where'd you get the inspiration for all the different jackets from?
Okay, so all of the works themselves are part of a process exploration. And so it wasn't I'm gonna do this is my set goal. It was a lot of experimenting. And so, for example, with the Home Divided book, I didn't know I was gonna be taking a bunch of words out of book pages and stringing them up and hanging them from the ceiling. It's all process-based. And so as I would work, I would find new ways of working. And so, for example, with Accidents Happen, you have more of an illustration. And then with From Scratch and Life Experience, you have this silhouette. And so it's all really experimentation to see, you know, what's the best way to tell the story.
I'm curious to know which one of these pieces took the longest.
The longest. It would definitely be Accidents Happen, because I had to, so the pages or the material that it's on is built of book pages, but it's kind of collaged together. So I would rip up little pieces of pages and stick them together before I would draw on them. And so it took a big process of that, and also getting that perspective of the buildings right, because that one has a really fun play on perspective. I was really inspired by the artist Red Grooms, and he has really fun perspectives in his work, and it's very sculptural as well.
How did all of these pieces come together for you? Did you know that you were going to have this many pieces when you started?
I originally wanted to do 5, but because they're so detailed and I didn't realize how in detail they were going to go, I ended up going with 3. So the works themselves are based on life challenges. And what I really wanted to create was a relatable experience for the viewer. So I identified different challenges that we all face. So that would be accidents, aging, and separation. And so once I got those 3 basic themes, I built on them and actually started to create like a blurb for a story, and then that's where the sculptures were inspired from.
Tell me about From Scratch.
From Scratch and Life Experience is all about imparting knowledge. So this idea of aging, we usually think of aging as, you know, getting older in physical appearance, but as I started to think about it whenever I was creating the book, I was like, aging is not about physical appearance and just losing it and being like, oh no. It's more about literally the life experiences that you get, and what do you do with those experiences? How do you impart this knowledge onto others? How do you share these experiences so you can build others up? Because when you age, you lose that vanity. Whenever you're younger, you know, it's all about appearances, but when you get older, it's more about who you are and what are you doing in your life.
Yeah, so was there anybody in your life that was that person for you that gave you that kind of aged wisdom?
So I'll say my grandma and my mom, because they're both very much in that way. They love to tell me about their experiences, especially when they were younger. And just when I was little, I would hear all these different stories, and not just my grandmother, but also grandfather as well, because he was in the Navy, and so they would always be telling me about all the different stories and things that they've learned, and just these really fun things, you know, that built my childhood, fairy tales and things of that nature as well.
Well, thank you so much. It has been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Great having you.
Incredible women. I wish they had those kind of cool careers for women when we were growing up.
So in this flashback, we're all the same age?
Yeah.
What does everyone want to be when they grow up?
If I say 2 jobs, do I get extra credit?
No.
I want to make immersive video games. I want to revolutionize 3D printing. I want to analyze data from the cloud.
I want to be a meteor.
You mean meteorologist?
No.
That's great, Al. Follow your dreams.
For the record, I was a baby in the 70s.
Josh Reynolds, how are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. So behind us, we're standing in front of your sculptures that you made for the spring exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about your pieces.
They deal with kind of healing through trauma. These pieces represent 3 tours in Iraq when I was in the Marines. Each iteration gets more fragmented, and that kind of goes along the lines of the chipping away of humanity over a war. And the light kind of shows the beauty in healing, illuminates the fractures and the voids. So it's, you can heal through trauma, so that's the main concept.
Do you feel like, this is a personal question, I don't know if we'll keep it or not, but do you feel like you healed through making the pieces at all? Was that a healing process for you?
Yes, it was a lot of self-reflection, and prior to that I did other studies and went to law school and came back, and it was kind of like I had to slow down to really just focus on healing rather than just trying to stay busy, because that's more of an emotional response to trauma, is just to keep busy, and so it was a lot of self-reflecting while I did the work. So it was really good.
Technically speaking, how did you come up with the concepts? How did you chip away at all of these sculptures?
Okay, I'm really inspired by ancient Greek and Roman sculpture. And I felt that such timeless pieces, they still dealt with issues that we deal with today. So it tied in conceptually and aesthetically. I really enjoyed the sculpture. So I kind of wanted to bring that in with a modern feel of like rusted steel to show destruction of war and LED lights to illuminate the pieces. So I like the mix of the classical sculpture with modern technology.
Yeah, you have two other sculptures in the exhibit as well that kind of do play off that Greco-Roman theme. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, the main figures, the idea behind that is the importance of a support system for people dealing with trauma. The larger male piece is based on the Belvedere torso. It's a marble sculpture in the Vatican. It was thought to be Ajax. He was a great mythical hero. He lost a war or a competition for magical armor. He felt so distraught over the failure that he contemplated suicide. But my pieces, I put the female figure in to show the support system and Ajax enduring his failures and then ultimately not wanting to take his own life. So that's what the concept behind that piece is.
What about you have another sort of Medusa moment happening?
That deals with sexual trauma. My wife is a survivor of that, so it's important to me to see some change in our society because it really is a problem. The CDC says 1 in 3 women will experience sexual trauma within their lifetime, and to me that's really unacceptable as a society. So that piece shows the healing from that. She's a very empowered, strong woman. She's unashamed of her body, and it just shows that even trauma survivors can become very strong and beautiful people with their own experiences.
So in one of your artist statements, you have this quote from Shakespeare, and I love Shakespeare, and I thought that was, but it caught me off guard a little bit. I was like not expecting to read it. So tell me, where did that inspiration come from?
It was actually, I was with the Scout Reconnaissance Unit. We're a really small unit, and we would go out in front of everybody to send back intelligence, do route reconnaissance or enemy movements. And so we were a really small, tight-knit unit, and it was a saying that we would say, and it was on our emblem and everything. Just that when you're faced with such odds, with such a small unit, that it doesn't matter where you came from or your walk of life. We're in a situation together, and you will be my brother.
Last week there was an award ceremony in the Baum Art Gallery where friends and family got to come in and check out all the stuff. What was the response that people had to your pieces?
I think it was a really good response. I felt a lot of people showed interest, and I think on a conceptual level, they wanted to understand the pieces, and luckily in my artist statement, I wanted to give some context to that. But I think also technically, they just wanted to see how it was made, because you don't see a lot of bronze and aluminum casting here. So it was nice to bring in, kind of a breadth of material, and make sculpture a presence, because now a lot of it's going digital and graphic design and painting and stuff. So it was nice to give sculpture a presence.
Yeah, because all 3 of these pieces behind us are different materials.
Yes.
So how did you decide, what materials to use?
I knew I wanted a variety. I chose these materials because they're hard, they're very cold. I get a feeling of a cold material, and that kind of plays along the lines of emotional disconnection, but they're also very strong materials, so it kind of, to me, it represents the strength a trauma survivor can have once they go through the healing process. So that was the idea behind the materials.
Were they difficult to kind of break away at? Was that, how intentional are these lines and cracks?
The concrete was very intentional. I hollow casted the concrete and just took a Dremel and broke it apart, and so I had more hand in exactly where the cracks were. The other pieces, I molded them knowing where the cracks would be cast. So this was a little more intuitive, because when you break concrete, you don't know exactly where it's going to break. And these are more hands-on, precise, knowing where the metal will be casted.
Which one did you do first?
I did the concrete, actually. Concrete's easier to, or a lot cheaper to handle a mistake rather than bronze or aluminum, so I wanted my hand at the cheaper material first.
That's really smart. Was there like a specific reason you chose like that color blue for the LED lights?
Yes, I wanted it to complement the reds and the rust of the steel, so it tied together really nice with the complementary colors.
So you said that you were going to law school and you were doing all this other stuff. How did you end up at UCA in the Baum Art Gallery with these amazing sculptures?
Well, I originally graduated here in 2014 with applied mathematics. Then I went to law school. I liked the challenge of it, but I didn't have any time with my family, and that's important to me. And it just made me think, I really do want to pursue my passion. So I decided to leave law school, came back, because I was an art minor when I was doing my Bachelor's of Science. And art has always just been a tool to help with stress and just a good outlet. So then I just decided to pursue it full time, and so here I am.
What's next for the future of Josh Reynolds?
Hopefully grad school. I'd like to continue on and get my master's in sculpting.
So what do you hope that viewers get out of your pieces? What do you hope for them?
I want them to get an inspiration that there is healing after any kind of trauma, and I feel like most people, we all deal with our own issues, and sometimes it might be overwhelming, but my last tour was 15 years ago, so it's taken quite a while to heal from it, but in the end, I feel they are my experiences now. They're unique to me, and I own that. So I think it's unique now rather than a burden.
Thank you so much. We'll be back with more in a moment.